Hello, welcome to Bell and Building. This is Good Questions with Anh Will. Today I am going to talk about brewing. Been asked a lot recently about brew ratios, why we need to change them for different coffees. A lot of it has to do with roast level and the coffee itself. I want to bring your attention to this, what we call a fractionated brew. Basically, I used the same dripper for 1 minute on each cup to divide the brew into 3 parts. In this first one, for the first minute of the brew, we get the majority of the solids out of the coffee and into the liquid. The flavors you're going to experience here are going to be a bit more intense, more salt, more acidity, a higher bitterness because of the concentration. The next one is the second minute. And as you can see, it's a little closer to what I would call a normal color for a drip coffee. And it's a little bit more mellow. It has a touch more sweetness in relation to the first cup, but it's missing a little bit of something, right? So each of these parts need each other to complete the cup. For the third minute, it's really light, and we're basically just trying to squeeze out what's left in the coffee after the first 2 minutes. This cup is not too offensive, but not at all interesting. There's just kind of a generic coffee flavor. Key note is a little bit of bitterness, and then everything else is just muted. But if I were to combine these cups, I would find a lot more balance and complexity. So every brew follows this same timeline. We get salts and acids in higher concentration, a little bit of sweetness and dilution to balance things out, and then a little bit of bitterness. And so how far we go with our brew will kind of depend on our preferences and tastes. And so if you like your coffee to be a bit more mellow and you don't mind a little bit of bitterness, a bigger brew ratio, more water in relation to the coffee that you use, is going to be useful for you. If you like your coffees a bit more bright and intense of an experience, a higher amount of coffee and less water will help you achieve that. And basically, for those of you brewing at home, what I would do is just start with a general, maybe a 1:16 brew ratio by weight. If you don't use a scale when you brew, that's okay. Just pay attention to how much water and how much time your brew goes, and adjust up or down depending on what you want and what you prefer. Maybe you find a brew tastes pretty okay, it's just a little strong. You can also dilute that with a little bit of water to maintain the same flavors, but decrease the intensity. I would say that most darker roast coffees will fall on this side of the equation when it comes to your brew ratio. So a little less water for darker roasts and a little more water for lighter roasts. Lighter roasts are a little bit more difficult to pull bitter flavors out of, so they can really tolerate a lot of water being poured through them. Dark roasts, however, have a lot more bitterness if you push them too hard. So I tend to use a lot less water when I'm brewing dark roasts. So a general rule of thumb, if you're weighing, darker roasts 1:15, lighter roasts 1:17. You know, kind of adjust up and down there based on your preferences.